People think blindness is darkness. It is not. Darkness is what my own daughter did with the trust I placed in her hands. I have not seen sunlight in 7 years, but the day I finally saw what Nadine had done with my $640,000, I did not need eyes. I needed a lawyer, a forensic accountant, and a jail cell big enough for 3. My name is Vivian Oakes, 65 years old, living alone in a house on Gill Avenue in Memphis, Tennessee. Retired reading teacher, Carver Elementary, 34 years with Memphis City Schools. Taught 3 generations of children to sound out words and fall in love with sentences. Then diabetic retinopathy took my sight at 58. One morning, the page went blurry, and 6 months later, the page was gone. A reading teacher who could no longer read. If God has a sense of humor, he kept it to himself that day. My husband, James, drove a Mattabus in Shelby County for 28 years. Steady man, quiet hands. Heart attack took him in 1990 at 52. He left me the house, paid off a $180,000 life insurance policy, his pension, and he left me alone. I did not waste what he gave me. Over the next decade, I invested carefully. CDs at First Tennessee Bank, savings bonds, a small stock portfolio through Edward Jones that a nice young man named Michael helped me build. By the year 2000, I had grown that into approximately $640,000. I lived on the interest in my teacher's pension, $1,800 a month. I did not touch the principal. That money was my safety net, my nursing home fund, my grandchildren's inheritance, everything James and I had worked for, one bus route and one lesson plan at a time. Then I went blind, and my daughter volunteered to be my eyes, Nadine, my only daughter. She became my legal guardian and conservator in 1998. Gregory, my son, lived out in Dallas. He called every Sunday, but he could not be here. So Nadine stepped up, cried at the family meeting, and said, "Mama gave us everything, let me give back to her." And I believed her. Lord, I believed her. She came 3 times a week, ripped my mail, drove me to appointments. Just junk mail, Mama. Property tax form, just sign right here. She would take my hand, guide the pen to the line, and I would sign whatever she told me to sign. Because she was my daughter, because I could not see the words. Small things felt wrong, but I smoothed them over. My air conditioner had been broken since the previous July. Nadine said the repairman was backed up in Memphis in August. I asked for new orthopedic shoes, mine worn through so thin I could feel the sidewalk seams through the sole. Money's tight right now, Mama. Let me see what I can do. Money's tight. For a woman sitting on $640,000, she did not know was already gone. But I did not know that yet. So by 2002, my world was small and careful. I woke every morning to my talking clock, the one James gave me the Christmas before he died, right on the nightstand where I could reach it without thinking. Every morning at 6, that little electronic voice would say the time, and I would get up and start my day like the world had not gone dark. I made coffee by touch, counting scoops, feeling the water level against my finger inside the pot. I listened to WDIA on the kitchen radio, same station James used to play every morning while he knotted his tie. I memorized my house the way I used to memorize lesson plans, room by room, step by step. 14 steps from my bedroom to the kitchen, 7 from the kitchen to the front door. You learn, or you sit in a chair and wait to die, and I was not the waiting kind. And then I waited for Nadine. That was my life in 2002, waking up, making coffee, listening to the radio, and waiting for the sound of my daughter's car in the driveway. She brought groceries from the Piggly Wiggly, though never the good cuts anymore. The good ham was out, Mama. I got you the store brand. She would sit at my kitchen table and sort through my mail. I could hear the envelopes tearing, the paper sliding, the little pauses where she decided what I needed to hear. Insurance renewal, nothing to worry about. Trusting her was easier than doubting her, and doubting her meant doubting everything. 95 degrees outside, and I sat in that house with every window open, a box fan pointed at my chair, and I did not push. I felt guilty for asking for things. Me, guilty, because Nadine said money was tight, and I believed that too. My house needed painting. I could not see it, but I could smell the mildew creeping in around the bathroom window. I will get to it, Mama. The roof leaked in the back bedroom when it rained hard. The front steps were soft in the middle. I knew all of it by sound and smell and the give of the wood under my feet, but I could not fix any of it myself. Derek, Nadine's husband, he came every Sunday with peach cobbler. Homemade, still warm. He called me Mama V, told me I was blessed to have a daughter like Nadine. Every Saturday when he stopped by, I caught the smell of sunscreen on him. Strong, like he had been out in open water. I asked where he had been. Just the park with the kids, Mama V. I let it go, but you do not need that much sunscreen for a park in Memphis. After James died, I made one mistake. His name was Darnell Crawford. He had a voice that could make a woman forget her own common sense. Met him at a fish fry at Greater Mount Moriah Baptist Church in 1992. He moved into my house by 93. Within 6 months, he was asking about my accounts, pressuring me to put his name on everything. When I refused, the charm dropped like a mask hitting the floor. He hit me, broke my wrist, told me I was nothing without a man to manage my money. My son-in-law, Derek, threw him out like the trash he was, dragged him right off my front porch. I got a restraining order. Darnell was arrested not long after for running check cashing scams on 3 other women in Whitehaven. Convicted. 6 years at Riverbend. The whole family celebrated. I closed that chapter and bolted the door. I thought it stayed closed. I was wrong about that too. One Tuesday night, I was on the phone with Nadine, saying goodnight. I heard a car pull up on her and the engine had a heavy idle, a big car, not Derek's. Nadine's voice changed, just a flutter, a quickness, like she was covering something. "That's just Derek coming home late from his brother's," she said. I let that go too. I was good at letting things go. I had trained myself to smooth the edges, trust the people I loved, and keep my hands folded in my lap. Then one evening, weeks before everything cracked open, Nadine was at my house reading the week's mail. She excused herself to the bathroom to take a phone call. The door did not close all the way. I was sitting in the living room, quiet, the way blind people are quiet when the world thinks they're not paying attention. Through the gap in that door, I heard a man's voice. Not the words, just the sound of it. The cadence, the way it rose and fell low and unhurried like someone used to being listened to. Something about that voice settled into my stomach like a stone. It was familiar, not recent familiar, deep familiar, like a sound from a room I had locked and walked away from years ago. I sat there after Nadine came out, turning it over. I could not place it. I told myself I was imagining things, that 7 years of darkness makes your mind play tricks. Shook my head and let it go, but some voices you do not forget, even when you spend a decade trying. It was a Sunday after church at Greater Mount Moriah Baptist. Miss Ruthie Mae Henderson drove me home like she always did. Ruthie Mae and I had been friends 40 years since we were young nurses' aides together before I switched to teaching. She was retired now, sharp as a tack, blunt as a hammer, and the kind of woman who would tell you your wig was crooked in the middle of a funeral and mean it as a kindness. We sat on my porch drinking sweet tea. The afternoon heat pressed down like a hand. Ruthie Mae was quiet, which was not like her at all. Finally, she set her glass down. "Viv, I need to ask you something and I need you to not get upset." "When have I ever gotten upset with you, Ruthie?" "Did you buy Nadine and Derek a lake house?" The porch went silent. Even the birds stopped. "A what?" "A lake house. Out at Pickwick Landing. 3 bedrooms, a deck, a dock, 2 boats tied up. I drove past it last weekend when Carl Pryor, that is Derek's brother, invited the church fishing club out there for a barbecue. He was bragging about it like it was his own. But I asked around. My friend, Loretta Mills, She works at the Hardin County Register of Deeds. She pulled the records. Cash purchase, $185,000. Cash. Vivian, where does Derek Pryor get $185,000 in cash? My sweet tea glass was trembling in my hand. I set it down on the arm of the chair. Careful, the way you set down something you are afraid of dropping. I did not speak for a long time. The fan inside the house clicked on its rotation. A dog barked 2 houses over. The world kept turning like nothing had changed, but everything had changed. Ruthie, read me my mail. What mail? All of it. Whatever's in the house. The pile on the kitchen table. Nadine has not been here in 4 days. Read me everything. Ruthie Mae went inside. I heard her footsteps cross the living room, heard the kitchen chair scrape, heard her pick up the stack of envelopes that had been sitting there since Nadine's last visit. She came back to the porch. She started reading. A statement from First Tennessee Bank, savings account, balance $212.67. That account once held $95,000. A notice from Edward Jones. My investment account had been closed. Closed per authorized party. A property tax bill from Hardin County, Tennessee. I did not own property in Hardin County, but my name was on the tax bill. My hands gripped the armrests of my porch chair. The wood bit into my palms. I was not crying. My voice, when it came, was flat as a table. Ruthie, call my son. Gregory flew in on a Friday. By Saturday morning, he was on his hands and knees in my house, pulling open every drawer, every filing cabinet, every shoebox I had not touched in years. I sat in my chair and listened to him work. Drawers sliding, paper rustling, cabinet doors opening and closing. He was methodical about it, the way I taught him to be when he was 9 years old, and I made him organize his homework folder every Sunday night. My son was searching my house like a crime scene, because that is exactly what it was. What he found told one story. What he did not find told a worse one. 3 years of bank statements, gone. 3 years of Edward Jones quarterly reports, gone. The guardianship accounting reports Nadine was required to file annually with the Shelby County Probate Court, gone. Gregory called the probate clerk directly. The woman checked the file and said, "Sir, there are no annual accounting reports on file for this guardianship. The guardian is required to file them every year." 3 years. Not a single report. My daughter had not even bothered to pretend she was doing the job the court gave her, but Nadine had kept one folder, a neat manila folder tucked into the back of my bedroom closet, full of documents I had signed, trading authorizations, account transfer forms, and one document that made Gregory sit down on the edge of my bed and cry. It was titled Gift Authorization. It stated that I, Vivian Oakes, voluntarily gifted $185,000 to Nadine Oakes Pryor for family housing needs. My signature was at the bottom, shaky and guided, next to Nadine's handwriting on the witness line. Gregory read it to me twice. His voice broke on the second reading. "Mama, it has your signature." "Gregory, I am blind." She put the pen in my hand and told me where to sign. I asked what it was. She said property tax renewal. He was crying. I reached across and touched his face. I felt the tears running down his cheeks, pooling at the edge of his jaw. My son's tears were the first thing I had read in 7 years that told me the truth. I was done being in the dark. Gregory called his cousin Tommy that same afternoon. Thomas Oakes, my late brother Walter's boy. 38 years old, insurance adjuster at State Farm down in Jackson, Mississippi. Tommy knew numbers the way I knew vowel sounds. He could smell fraud the way a bloodhound smells rain coming. He drove up that night, 4 hours on Highway 55, and by Sunday morning he was sitting at my kitchen table with a legal pad, a calculator, and the authorization letter I signed so he could walk into the banks on my behalf. Gregory read the letter to me word by word. Ruthie Mae witnessed it. I signed it knowing exactly what I was putting my name on. That was the difference between this signature and everyone Nadine had guided. This one was mine. Tommy started at First Tennessee Bank on Poplar Avenue. He came back with paper statements going all the way to 1998. Systematic transfers, 10,000 here, 15,000 there, 25,000, 40,000, all flowing out of my accounts and into an account in Nadine's name at Union Planters Bank. He went to Edward Jones. Next, my investment account, the one I had built slowly over a decade after James died, had peaked at $310,000. It was liquidated in chunks between 1999 and 2001. Every penny wired to that same Union Planters account. Tommy pulled Hardin County Register of Deeds records. The lake house at Pickwick Landing, purchased October 2000 for $185,000. Cash. Title in Nadine and Derek's names. Tax bills mailed to my address on Gill Avenue, where Nadine intercepted them along with everything else. He pulled vehicle titles from the Shelby County Clerk. A Lincoln Navigator, 2001 model, titled to Derek Pryor. A Lexus ES300 titled to Nadine. And one more, a Cadillac DeVille, that did not match either of their names. Tommy noted it and kept moving. He checked with a contact at the IRS. Discreet. The Pryors had carried a $54,000 tax lien from Derek's failed import business. Paid in full, March 2000. Source, a cashier's check drawn on Nadine's Union Planters account. My money, paying off a debt I did not know existed for a business I never heard of. Their credit cards, $38,000 across 4 accounts, paid off the same way. But Tommy found something else, something that did not fit the pattern. $71,000 in ATM cash withdrawals, spread across dozens of transactions at Union Planters machines all over Memphis, Whitehaven, Orange Mound, Lamar Avenue, South Memphis, not anywhere near Nadine's house in Cordova, not anywhere near the lake. These were neighborhoods where Nadine had no business being. Tommy flagged it. He could not trace cash, not yet. He filed it away and circled it in red on his legal pad. But I would learn later that those $71,000 had a destination, and that destination had a name. I just did not know it yet. Tommy laid everything out on my kitchen table. He read every number to me. I listened in complete silence for 45 minutes. When he finished, I asked one question. How much is left? In all your accounts combined, $4,300 and change. I had $640,000. Yes, ma'am. I sat in my chair. I turned toward the window because I could feel the afternoon sun on the left side of my face, warm and steady, the way it always was at 3 o'clock. I said very quietly, "She stole my eyes twice, Tommy. The first time God took my sight. The second time my daughter took everything I would ever need to see me through." Ruthie Mae knew a lawyer. She had watched this woman work 2 years earlier, representing one of Ruthie Mae's retired nursing colleagues in an elder abuse case. Lorraine Buckley, elder law specialist, 55 years old, office on Poplar Avenue in a converted Victorian house, former public defender who switched to elder law after watching her own grandmother get exploited by a home care agency. Gregory drove me to her office. I navigated the front steps on his arm. I sat in the leather chair across from Lorraine's desk and waited while she reviewed Tommy's documents in silence for 20 minutes. The only sound was pages turning and a pen scratching notes. Then she spoke. "Mrs. Oakes, I have 3 questions. First, did you ever authorize your daughter to buy property, boats, or vehicles with your money?" "No." "Second, did your daughter ever file the annual guardian accounting reports required by Shelby County Probate Court?" Tommy checked his notes. "We cannot find any." "Third, when your daughter had you sign documents, did she read them to you accurately?" "She read me what she wanted me to hear." Lorraine took off her glasses. She picked up the Edward Jones trading authorization, the one Nadine had obtained 2 months before the guardianship hearing even took place. She held it between 2 fingers like something that smelled wrong. "This document is dated 2 months before the court appointed your daughter as your guardian. She had you sign this before you even agreed to the arrangement. That is premeditation, Mrs. Oakes. She was not helping you. She was robbing you before the ink was dry on the court order." She set it down. Your daughter committed theft, fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty. She exploited a disabled person under Tennessee law. She failed to file a single guardianship accounting report in over 3 years. And she did all of it systematically, methodically for 3.5 years while telling you the money was safe. I am going to take your case. My hourly rate is whatever you can see on that clock on my wall. I paused, then almost smiled. I cannot see your clock, Mrs. Buckley. Exactly. That afternoon, walking back down those porch steps on Gregory's arm, I felt something I had not felt in 3.5 years. Not hope, exactly. Something harder than hope. Certainty. I had a lawyer who believed me. I had a nephew who could trace every dollar. I had a son who would not leave until this was done. And I had ears that had been recording the truth even when I did not know I was listening. Lorraine filed an emergency subpoena for Nadine's union planner's records within the week. When those records came back, Tommy sat down with them for 2 full days. Now he could see every dollar from the other side. The $54,000 cashier's check to the IRS, the transfers to car dealerships, the $185,000 cashier's check to the Hardin County Title Company, and the $71,000 in ATM withdrawals, pulling cash from machines in neighborhoods that told a story Tommy could not yet finish. He presented the complete picture at my kitchen table, reading aloud for over an hour. $640,000 mapped, traced, accounted for, down to the last withdrawal. But Nadine felt the ground shifting. Gregory was in town, which never happened on a weekday. Tommy had been asking questions at First Tennessee, and a friend of Nadine's who worked there called to warn her. So Nadine did what Nadine always did. She built a wall out of church. She called Pastor Calvin Whitfield at Greater Mount Moriah Baptist. Pastor, I am worried about Mama. She has been confused lately, paranoid. She accused me of taking her money. Can you imagine? After everything I have done, I think the blindness is affecting her mind. Pastor Whitfield called me, gentle, careful. Sister Oakes, Nadine tells me you have been under some stress. Is there anything the church family can do? I knew exactly what that phone call meant. Nadine had been building her alibi for years. Every Sunday casserole she brought to the potluck. Every time she walked me to my pew and said, I got you, Mama. Every choir rehearsal. She was not being a good daughter. She was being a good witness for herself. I said, Pastor, the only stress I have is finding out my daughter stole $640,000 from a blind woman. If the church family wants to help, they can pray for Nadine. She is going to need it. He was silent for a very long time. Lorraine's investigator found Darlene Washington within the week. Darlene, my home health aide. She had been coming twice a week through 10 Care for 2 years. She had been quiet. She had been scared. Now, with Lorraine's guarantee of legal protection, she talked. I saw her take the mail every time. She would sort it at the kitchen table while Mrs. Oakes was in the other room. She would put some in her purse and read the rest out loud. I saw her guide Mrs. Oakes' hand to sign papers at least 6 times. Mrs. Oakes would ask, What is this? And Nadine would say, Just the electric bill, Mama, or insurance renewal. One time, I saw the header on the paper. It said Edward Jones. That is not an electric bill. Why did you not say something? Darlene's voice dropped. Because Nadine told me if I said one word, she would have me fired and make sure I never worked in home health in Shelby County again. She said, who is going to believe the aide over the daughter? And I thought she was right. Darlene was shaking when she finished, but she finished. She signed her name to a sworn affidavit, and Lorraine recorded every word on microcassette, notarized, filed. Another piece of the case, another voice that Nadine thought she had silenced. I sat in my living room that evening after Darlene left and thought about what she said. Who is going to believe the aide over the daughter? That was Nadine's weapon. Not a knife, not a gun. Just certainty that nobody would listen. She counted on silence the way a burglar counts on darkness. But the lights were coming on now, one by one, and every light was a person who decided to speak. Then Lorraine asked me to do something I had not expected. She asked me to remember. Not documents, not numbers, sounds. She wanted to know what I had heard over 3.5 years, the things I dismissed at the time but now understood. I sat across from her and I told her everything my ears had been collecting while my eyes were dark. I heard Nadine on the phone once in my kitchen saying, "The deck contractor needs another $12,000 by Friday." I asked what deck. She said Derek's brother is building a deck for his church. I believed her. I heard Derek say to Nadine, they thought I was asleep, "Baby, we should get the Navigator before the year-end sale ends." Nadine said, "I will move the money tomorrow." I did not know what money. I heard Nadine tell Brianna on the phone, "Your Sweet 16 is going to be the one everyone talks about." Tommy's bank records confirmed that party cost $8,000. Nadine told me it cost $400. And I smelled sunscreen. Every Saturday morning for 2 summers, I smelled sunscreen on Derek when he came to bring me cobbler. He said he had been at the park with the kids. You do not need that much sunscreen for a park in Memphis. You need that much sunscreen for a lake. Lorraine set her pen down and looked at me. "Mrs. Oakes, you may have lost your sight, but you are the most observant witness I have ever met. When you cannot see, Mrs. Buckley, you learn to listen like your life depends on it. Turns out it did." And then there was the voice. I had told Lorraine about it. The evening Nadine took a phone call in my bathroom, and the door did not close all the way. The man's voice I could not place, the cadence that settled into my stomach like a stone I could not swallow. Now I knew whose voice it was. Darnell Crawford, on the phone with my daughter, in my house, 3 rooms away from the woman he used to beat. My body had known before my mind caught up. That is what years of blindness teaches you. Your gut remembers what your eyes cannot confirm. Gregory drove me to Pickwick Landing on a Tuesday. I insisted I needed to feel what my money built. We pulled onto a gravel driveway. New gravel, expensive. I could hear it popping under the tires and then crunching under my shoes when I stepped out. Gregory led me to the front door. Solid wood, heavy. He walked me through the house and I touched everything. Granite countertops in the kitchen, cool and smooth under my fingers. A leather sofa that sighed when I pressed my hand into it. A ceiling fan whirring above me, pushing air that smelled like new carpet and pine. He led me out to the dock. I heard the water before I felt the planks under my shoes, lapping, steady. Gregory guided my hand to the pontoon boat, the metal railing warm from the sun, the vinyl seats, the outboard motor. How much was this boat? $42,000, Mama? $42,000. My pension is $1,800 a month, Gregory. That boat is 2 years of my life. I stood on that dock for 5 minutes. The wind off Pickwick Lake blew my hair across my face. I could hear birds calling from the tree line. I could smell pine and motor oil and something sweet, honeysuckle maybe, climbing up from the bank. Gregory was quiet beside me. He knew not to talk. He knew I was doing math in my head, the kind of math that does not need a calculator. $42,000 for the boat, $185,000 for the house, $67,000 for 2 vehicles, $54,000 for the IRS, $38,000 for credit cards, and somewhere out there, $71,000 in cash that vanished into neighborhoods my daughter had no reason to visit. I stood on a dock I paid for, touching a boat I bought, looking at a lake I would never see, in front of a house I did not know existed. And somewhere back in Memphis, my air conditioner was still broken. Around that same time, Nadine started disappearing in the evenings. She told Derek she was checking on me, but one night Derek called my house looking for her. I answered the phone. "Nadine is not here, baby." That was all I said, but it was enough. What happened after that phone call, I would not learn for weeks. I only knew that something between Nadine and Derek was cracking. He stopped bringing cobbler. He stopped coming around. And when he finally did come, 3 days after that phone call, he sat in my kitchen for 20 minutes without saying a word. Then he said, "Mama V, I am sorry." "For what, baby?" He did not answer. He left. Derek said, "I am sorry," like a man standing at a funeral. His own, maybe. I did not know what he was apologizing for. Not then, but the investigation I had set in motion was pulling threads I could not see, and some of those threads ran through places and people I had not yet imagined. The $71,000 had a story. The voice through the bathroom door had a name, and the man who once broke my wrist was closer than I ever could have feared. I just could not see him yet, but I was learning to look with everything I had left. I called Nadine on a Thursday, kept my voice soft. "We need to talk, baby." 20 minutes later, I heard her car, her heels on the walkway, clicking too fast, not her usual pace. The front door opened and her purse hit the kitchen counter hard, the way you set something down when your hands are shaking. I was sitting at the kitchen table, the same table where James proposed to me in 1965, where I graded papers for 34 years, where I taught both my children to read. "Nadine, I need you to tell me about the lake house at Pickwick Landing." Silence. 3 seconds. 5 seconds. The 7 seconds. "Who told you about that? Does it matter?" She sat down. Chair legs scraped linoleum. When she spoke again, the sweetness was gone, drained out like water through a cracked glass. "Mama, you do not understand. Derek's business failed. The IRS was going to take our house. The kids needed things. You were not using that money. You were just sitting on it. I am the one who takes care of you. I read your mail. I drive you to the doctor. That money was owed to me." "Owed to you?" "Yes." Louder now. "Do you know what it is like to take care of a blind woman? Do you know what I gave up? My life, my weekends. So yes, I used some of the money because you are not the only person in this family who matters." "Some of the money? Nadine, you took $640,000? Then she said it, the line I will hear in my sleep until I die. "Mama, you are blind. You were never going to see where it went. I just made it useful." I did not move. Blind. She said it like it was the whole of me, like 65 years of living and teaching and surviving meant nothing next to the fact that my eyes did not work. Something shifted inside my chest, not breaking, setting, like wet concrete hardening into something that could never be moved. I stood up, walked to the front door, opened it. "Get out of my house, Nadine." "Mama," I said, to get out. "I have a lawyer. And if you think blindness makes me stupid, you are about to find out how wrong you are." Her heels clicked back across my floor, slower this time. She stopped at the door, waiting for me to call her back, waiting for the mother in me to soften. I did not soften. The door closed, her car pulled away. My daughter looked at a blind woman and saw an open vault. She stood in my kitchen for 3.5 years and read me lies with the same mouth I taught to read. She put a pen in my hand and guided it across pages that stole my future. And when I finally confronted her, she did not apologize. She did not cry. She told me I was blind, as if that made the money hers, as if my blindness made me less than a person, as if $640,000 was the price of not being able to see. I stood in my doorway after she left. The afternoon sun was warm on my face. I was not crying. Something beyond tears had taken hold of me, something quiet and cold and absolutely certain. The daughter I loved was dead. The woman who walked out of my house was a stranger who happened to have my last name. What I did not know yet was how much worse it was about to get. Derek's confession came to me through Lorraine. I learned later that he had followed Nadine one evening when she said she was checking on me. She went to an apartment on Lamar Avenue instead. Derek watched from his car. 30 minutes later, a man came to the window. Darnell Crawford, the man Derek threw off my porch in 1994. The man who broke my wrist, standing in a window on Lamar Avenue with Derek's wife behind him. Derek went back the next day, found a pregnancy test in the bathroom trash. Positive. He had a vasectomy in 1999. That baby was not his. Then he found a shoebox behind the winter coats. 2 Greyhound tickets to Atlanta. 2 tickets, not 3. Nadine and Darnell. No ticket for Derek. $6,000 cash in a rubber band. He was never part of the exit plan. He was the fall guy. So Derek called Lorraine. He sat in her conference room and told her everything. How Darnell got out of Riverbend in late 1997 and went straight to Nadine. How $71,000 in ATM cash went to Darnell's apartment and his Cadillac and his pockets. How Nadine screamed during their fight that Darnell was right there in my kitchen when I signed those papers, that he told her exactly where to put my hand. Lorraine recorded every word on her micro cassette. Then she came to my house. She brought Gregory and Tommy. She sat me down and said the words that broke me open one more time. Mrs. Oakes, a third person was involved from the very beginning, someone who approached Nadine and gave her the plan. Who? Darnell Crawford. My hand started shaking. Not from weakness, from something that started in my stomach and worked its way out through my fingers. He came back. He was released in late 1997. He approached Nadine shortly after. I stood up from my chair, walked to the mantelpiece, 14 steps from the kitchen table, put my hand on James's photograph. I could not see his face, but I could feel the glass under my fingers, cool and smooth. The man who broke my wrist. He went to my child. He seduced my daughter and used her to steal everything James left me. Yes. And she let him. Yes. I closed my eyes, which is what I always do when the pain is too much, even though closing them changes nothing. I remembered the night Darnell broke my wrist, 1994. He grabbed my arm in the bathroom and twisted it against the edge of the sink. I heard the bone before I felt it, a sound like a green stick snapping. I screamed so loud the neighbor called the police. Nadine was 26 years old that year. She saw the cast on my arm. She saw the bruises on my shoulder where he pinned me down. She drove me to the courthouse to file the restraining order. She sat in the car and cried while I went inside. She saw all of that. She knew what he was. And 3 years later, when he came knocking, she opened the door. She let the man who broke her mother's wrist whisper a plan to rob her mother blind. That was not manipulation. That was a choice. Darnell did not hold a gun to Nadine's head. He held out money and she reached for it with both hands. I kept my hand on that photograph, the voice through Nadine's bathroom door, the cadence that sat wrong in my stomach, some voices you never forget, even when you spend 10 years trying, and the car. That Tuesday night on the phone with Nadine, the heavy idol pulling up outside her house, not Derek's car, a big engine, a Cadillac engine, Darnell's Cadillac. The one Tommy found titled to a name that matched neither Nadine nor Derek. He had been coming and going from my daughter's house while I listened on the other end of the phone. I heard him arrive and did not know what I was hearing. That was Darnell, in my house, in my kitchen, standing 3 feet from me while my blind hand moved across the page that gave away my life savings. The man who beat me watched me sign, and I did not know he was in the room. I thought my daughter stole my eyes twice. I was wrong. It was 3 times. God took my sight. Nadine took my money, and Darnell took my daughter. He turned my own child into the weapon he could not be himself. He robbed me through her hands. I sat back down. What do we do now? Lorraine's voice was steady. We have everything we need. Tommy's financial analysis traces every dollar, bank records, the Edward Jones liquidation, the Hardin County deed, the vehicle titles, Darlene Washington's sworn affidavit, the fraudulent gift authorization, Derek's full recorded confession naming Darnell as the architect, the apartment lease on Lamar Avenue, the Greyhound tickets. She paused. I am filing an emergency petition to remove Nadine as your guardian tomorrow. Gregory will be named emergency temporary guardian. I am coordinating with Ada Marcus Tolliver at the Shelby County Elder Abuse Unit. Criminal charges against all 3. Or all 3. All 3, Mrs. Oakes. Nadine, Derek, and Darnell Crawford. I sat in my kitchen that night after everyone left. The broken air conditioner hummed its useless hum. I put my hands flat on the table and I made my decision. No mercy, no softening, No mother's guilt pulling me back from what needed to be done. My daughter chose the man who beat me. My daughter looked at my blindness and saw opportunity. And Darnell waited in a prison cell for 6 years and came out with one thought, that the blind woman still had money and now she could not even see him coming. I was ready. Every piece of evidence was compiled. Every ally was in position. Every dollar was traced. The only thing left was the courtroom. I lay in the dark that night, which is the only place I ever am. And I thought about James. I thought about what he would say. He would say, "Vivian, handle your business." That is exactly what I intended to do. Lorraine filed the emergency petition on a Tuesday. By noon, Nadine was served at Cordova. By evening, she had hired Russell Grimes. His first move was a counter motion claiming I was mentally incompetent, cognitive decline, advanced diabetic complications. Lorraine had anticipated this weeks ago. Dr. Yvonne Foster, a neuropsychologist at the University of Tennessee Health Science Center, had already evaluated me. 3 hours, memory tests, logic problems, verbal fluency. Her report contained one line that ended Grimes' strategy. Mrs. Oakes demonstrates cognitive function in the 94th percentile for her age group. She is not impaired, she is blind. Those are not the same thing. The incompetency claim died on the page. Then Nadine called me, crying before she said a word. "Mama, please, I am your daughter. I am pregnant. Think about Brianna and DJ. They need their mother. I will pay it back. Every penny." I let her finish. "Whose baby is it, Nadine?" Silence. Nadine. "Whose baby?" "Darnell's. You let the man who broke my wrist get you pregnant. You let the man who beat me in my own bedroom put his hands on you. You chose him while you were stealing from me, while you were lying to my face. You chose Darnell Crawford over your own mother." "Mama, he told me." "I do not care what he told you. I know what Darnell tells women. He told me the same things. Pretty words, big plans. He told me he loved me too. Right before he broke my wrist on the bathroom sink. You did not fall for a charmer, Nadine. You fell for a con man, and you helped him con me." She was sobbing. I am thinking of Brianna and DJ. That is exactly why I'm doing this. So they know that what you did has a name. It is called a crime." I hung up. My hand was steady. While Nadine cried, Darnell ran, cleaned out the Lamar Avenue apartment in one night, loaded the Cadillac, headed south on Interstate 55. Tommy gave the plate number to Lorraine. Lorraine gave it to Tolliver. Tolliver put out an interstate bolo. Mississippi Highway Patrol pulled Darnell at a way station outside Corinth. In the trunk, $14,000 in cash, a duffel bag, and a one-way Greyhound ticket to Atlanta. He did not make it out of Mississippi. The trial began on a Thursday morning. Judge Harold P. Simmons presiding. Courtroom full. Ruthie Mae front row, church hat, hands folded. The Greater Mount Moriah women filled the rows behind her. Pastor Whitfield sat with his head bowed. He had seen the evidence. He had nothing to say. Nadine sat at the defense table in a maternity dress. Darnell at a separate table in a county suit, showing nothing on his face. Derek was not at any defense table. He was on the prosecution's witness list. Tommy took the stand first, every dollar traced. $640,000, the lake house, the IRS payoff, the boats, the vehicles, $71,000 in ATM cash to neighborhoods nowhere near Cordova. Document gone. Darlene testified. Mail interception. Guided signatures. The paper Nadine called an electric bill that said Edward Jones across the top. Her voice was quiet and steady. Dr. Foster presented the 94th percentile evaluation. Grimes's incompetency motion was set aside without comment. Carl Pryor testified about the lake house, Gregory about the missing documents and the fraudulent gift authorization. The First Tennessee bank manager described the systematic transfer pattern across 3.5 years. Then the courtroom shifted. Derek Pryor took the stand. For me, he did not look at Nadine, not once. He looked straight at the judge, and he talked. He told the court how Darnell Crawford approached Nadine in late 1997, fresh out of Riverbend. How Darnell seduced her. How Darnell whispered the plan. Volunteer for guardianship, intercept the mail, guide the blind woman's hand, Drain the accounts? Then Derek said it. Darnell Crawford was in Mrs. Oakes's kitchen during the Edward Jones signing, standing 3 feet from her. She could not see him. He told Nadine where to put her hand on the page. The courtroom went still. I heard Ruthie Mae's breath catch. I heard the silence spread across that room like water across a floor. 3 feet. The man who broke my wrist stood 3 feet from me while my blind hand moved across the page that signed away my life savings. And I did not know he was in the room because I am blind. Derek testified about the $71,000 funneled to Darnell. The apartment, the Cadillac, the 2 Greyhound tickets to Atlanta. 2, not 3. He was the fall guy. He testified the pregnancy was Darnell's. Nadine took the stand in her own defense. She cried. She talked about the burden of caring for a blind mother. She called the money compensation. Gifts. She said Darnell manipulated her. She said she was not thinking clearly. Ada Tolliver stood for cross-examination. Young, precise, not interested in tears. Mrs. Pryor, Mr. Crawford was not in the room when you guided your blind mother's hand. That was you. He did not read your mother fake mail at the kitchen table. That was you. You were not manipulated. You were willing. You just had a partner. He held up the Edward Jones authorization, signed 2 months before the guardianship hearing. Was Mr. Crawford standing next to your mother when she signed this? Yes. So, the man who broke your mother's wrist was standing in her kitchen, watching her sign away her life savings, and she did not know he was there because she is blind. Nadine said nothing. Her hands were shaking in her lap. Tolliver turned to the judge. Your Honor, a blind woman was robbed by the 3 people closest to her daughter, her son-in-law, and the man she trusted the courts to keep away from her. They used her blindness as a weapon. They used her trust as a tool. This is not caregiving gone wrong. This is organized theft from a disabled woman. Darnell did not testify. His attorney called him a peripheral figure, but Derek's testimony had named him. The lease had his name. The Cadillac had his name, the $71,000 traced to his neighborhoods, the $14,000 in his trunk. Peripheral figures do not run. Guilty. All counts. Nadine and Darnell both. Judge Simmons read the sentences. Darnell Crawford, 15 years for elder theft and exploitation, 5 years consecutive for restraining order violation, 20 years total. Cadillac seized. $14,000 in cash seized. He will be 80 at earliest release. The judge addressed him directly. Mr. Crawford, you beat this woman in 1994. The court sent you to prison to protect her. You came back and found another way in. You went through her daughter. You taught her daughter how to rob a blind woman using her own pen. You took her money, you took her daughter, and you sat in an apartment paid for with her savings while she sat in a house with no air conditioning. This court gave you a second chance when you were released in 1997. You used it to commit the same crime in a worse way. There will not be a third chance. Darnell did not move, did not blink. Nadine Oakes Pryor, 12 years. Tennessee prison for women. The pregnancy did not reduce the sentence. The baby would be born in the prison medical unit. Nadine was removed as guardian. Her Lexus seized. Mrs. Pryor, your mother spent 34 years teaching children to read. When she lost her own sight, she trusted you to be her eyes. You let the man who broke her wrist stand in her kitchen while she signed away her savings. You read her lies at her own table. Your mother is blind, but you are the one who could not see that what you were doing was monstrous. Nadine dropped her head. Her shoulders shook. She did not speak. Derek Pryor. 4 years, reduced via cooperation. He confessed, he testified, he helped trace the money. His navigator already repossessed, restitution ordered, $640,000, all 3 jointly and severally liable. The lake house was seized and auctioned for $168,000. Pontoon boat, $18,000. Fishing boat, $7,500. Lexus, $22,000. Cadillac, $9,000. Total recovered, approximately $224,500. The remaining $415,500 follows all 3 as debt for life. My assets were placed in a protected trust at First Tennessee. Gregory managing them now, the way it should have been from the start. I sat in that courtroom through every word. I could not see the judge's face, could not see Nadine's tears or Darnell's emptiness or Derek staring at the floor, but I heard every syllable, every verdict, every sentence, every dollar accounted for. I heard Ruthie Mae exhale beside me, a breath she had been holding since the day she asked me about the lake house on the porch. I did not gloat. I did not smile. I did not stand up and say anything at all. I sat with my hands folded in my lap, and I let the law do what I had spent months building toward. I won. Not through luck, not through anger, through evidence, through patience, through every person who stepped forward and helped me see what my eyes could not. When the courtroom emptied, Gregory took my arm. Ruthie Mae walked on my other side. The church women fell in behind us. Nobody spoke until we reached the car. Ruthie Mae said, "It is done, Viv." I nodded. It is done. The tears came that night, not in the courtroom, not in the car, not on the walk up the porch steps. They came at 2 a.m, sitting in my kitchen with the lights off, which did not matter to me anyway. I had held myself together through every discovery, every confrontation, every hour in that courtroom. My body had been a fist for months. And now the fist opened. I cried for James, for the money he worked 30 years to leave me. I cried for the daughter I thought I had, the one who brought me groceries and read my mail and called me mama in a voice I believed. I cried for the woman who sat in this kitchen signing papers she could not see while her abuser watched from 3 feet away. I cried until my chest ached and my throat was raw and there was nothing left. Then I washed my face, made coffee, and sat on my porch in the dark. The air was warm, but not punishing. It was September. The worst of the Memphis heat had broken, and for the first time in 3.5 years, I was not waiting for anyone to come read me my own lies. Gregory handled everything. He flew back and forth from Dallas 3 times that month, and by October, the house on Gill Avenue looked like it belonged to someone who mattered. A new Carrier air conditioner, the first cold air in that house in over 2 years. Fresh paint on every wall, a blue so pale it looked like morning. The porch steps repaired, the railing tightened, the mildew scrubbed from the bathroom ceiling. I stood in my living room and felt the cool air settle around me like an apology. The women from Greater Mount Moriah did the rest. Ruthie Mae organized it because Ruthie Mae organizes everything. They came one Saturday morning with a pickup truck and filled the spare bedroom, a good mattress from Sears, firm the way my back needed, soft sheets, the kind with a high thread count that feels like being held, a bedside table with a lamp I would never turn on, but they put there anyway because it made the room look right. A radio with big buttons, already tuned to WDIA. Sister Mavis brought a quilt her grandmother had sewn. Sister Dolores brought a framed photograph of James from the church directory, 1987, smiling in his MATA uniform. I could not see it, but I held it against my chest and I could feel him. Pastor Calvin Whitfield came to the porch on a Wednesday afternoon. He stood at the bottom of the steps with his hat in his hands. I heard him before he spoke, the way he shifted his weight, the way he cleared his throat twice. "Sister Oakes, I owe you an apology. I listened to your daughter when I should have listened to you. The church failed you." I rocked in my chair. I let the silence sit for a moment because I wanted him to feel it. Then I said, "You did not fail me, Pastor. You just believed the wrong person. Nadine was good at making people believe her. That was her gift. She should have used it for something better." He sat with me for an hour. We did not talk about the trial again. The Greater Mount Moriah women started coming every Wednesday after that. They called it porch sit, sweet tea in mason jars, gossip about people I had known for 40 years, gospel music drifting from the radio through the screen door. My house became the gathering place it used to be when James was alive. The laughter came at first, then the ease, then the feeling that the walls of this house held something warm again instead of something hollow. Darnell began his 20 years at Brushy Mountain on a Monday. He said nothing at sentencing, and he said nothing after. No letter, no message through anyone. just silence from a man who had spent his whole life talking women out of their money and their dignity. His silence was the most honest thing he ever gave me. Nadine went to the Tennessee prison for women in Nashville. 12 years. The baby came in January in the prison medical unit. A girl. She named her Hope. Derek moved to his brother Carl's place near Savannah. 4 years, beginning in the spring. He had testified. He had helped. He had also stolen from a blind woman for 3.5 years and brought her peach cobbler to cover it. The cooperation agreement shortened his time. It did not erase what he did. Gregory visited from Dallas every month now. He would sit on the floor by my chair the way he used to when he was a boy and read me the Memphis commercial appeal. Sports first, then the obituaries, then the church announcements. One Sunday he was reading quietly, and I reached down and touched his face. He had his father's jawline, his father's ears. "You feel just like your daddy," I said. "Mama, you cannot see me. I do not need to." The months moved. I let them. By winter, I had enrolled in a Braille literacy class at the Memphis Public Library on Peabody Avenue. 65 years old, sitting at a table with my fingers on a page, learning to read again from the beginning. My teacher was a young woman named Keisha, half my age, patient as sunrise. She said I was the fastest learner in the program. I told her I had 34 years of practice teaching children to read with their eyes. Learning to read with my hands was not starting over. It was coming home through a different door. James would have laughed. Then he would have cried. Then he would have said, "Vivian, I told you, you see more than most people with 2 good eyes." Gregory arranged the trip to New Jersey, the Seeing Eye, in Morristown. I spent 25 days learning to walk with a yellow Labrador named Goldie. She was warm and steady, and she did not lie about where we were going. The first time she led me down a sidewalk without another person's arm, I cried. Not from sadness, from something I had almost forgotten the shape of: freedom. I started volunteering at the Memphis Center for Independent Living, talking to newly blinded adults about what independence looks like when the world goes dark. I told them the hardest part is not the darkness. The hardest part is learning who to trust, but there are people worth trusting. You just have to learn to listen for them. Brianna called 6 months after the sentencing. She was 18, working at Kroger, saving for classes at Southwest Tennessee Community College. "Grandma, I did not know where the money came from. I am sorry about the party. Brianna, I do not blame you for what your mother did, but I want you to remember something. That party, that dress, those were bought with money your grandfather earned driving a MATA bus for 28 years and your grandmother earned teaching children to read for 34. We earned it $1 at a time. Your mother spent it like it was water. Do not be like her, baby. Earn your own." "Yes, ma'am." DJ never called. A letter came from the Tennessee prison for women. Gregory read it to me. 3 pages, half apology, half justification. Nadine wrote about the baby. She wrote about Darnell getting in her head. She wrote, "We are the same, Mama. He did the same thing to both of us." The last line said, "You could have forgiven me, Mama. That is what mothers do." I sat with it for a long time. Then I said, "Write back for me, Gregory." He picked up a pen. "Nadine, we are not the same. Darnell beat me and I threw him out. Darnell whispered to you and you said yes. You said yes for 3.5 years. You said yes every time you put a pen in my hand. You said yes every time you told me just junk mail, Mama. Darnell did not ruin you, Nadine. He offered, and you accepted. That is the difference between us. I said no. You said yes. I love you, but I will never trust you again. There is a difference. As for the baby, name her whatever you want. But hope is something you earn, not something you name." Spring came. 2003. Gregory drove me to Pickwick Landing one last time before the auction went through. The lake house sat empty behind us, windows dark, furniture gone. I walked down to the dock. The boats were gone. The water lapped against the pilings the way water always does, not caring who paid for the dock it touches. The sun was warm on my face. The wind carried pine and honeysuckle. Goldie sat at my feet, her weight against my ankle, steady and still. I stood there for a long time, listening to the lake, feeling what my money had built and what my courage had taken back. I could not see the lake, but I saw them all clearly for the first time. I do not call it forgiveness. I call it release. I released my daughter from the job of being my eyes. I released Darnell from the space he took up in my nightmares. I released the money, most of it gone and not coming back. What I got in return was something none of them could steal. The knowledge that I am not helpless. I am blind. I am 65 years old. I learned Braille. I got a dog who loves me without conditions. I stood in a courtroom and told the truth, and a judge listened. My daughter said I was blind like it was an insult, like it meant I was less, but I have never seen more clearly than I do today. "Take me home, baby," I said to Gregory. "I want to sit on my porch. My air conditioner works now." If you are listening to this and someone is using your kindness as a key to your bank account, whether you are blind or old or tired or just too trusting, hear me. You are not the one who is broken. They are. And the locks can be changed, even the ones you cannot see.